Today we are going to study about physiological changes during pregnancy. As we know that during pregnancy there are extreme physical, functional and biochemical changes that takes place inside the maternal body, which are not only confined to the reproductive system but also to other systems, right? And what is the main motive behind these changes? It allows the maternal body to adapt the increasing demands of growing fetus, right? So one by one we'll be covering all systems. So let's start. Right, in reproductive system we are going to discuss about vulva first, right? So let's see what all changes will take place inside the vulva. Vulva gets edematous, right? The vulva will get edematous, means edema will occur, it will get swollen, right? Next, increased vascularity, right? There will be increased vascularity, means blood supply towards the vulva, right? And third one is labia minora gets pigmented and hypertrophied, right? Now what is the meaning of hypertrophy? It means increase in cell size, right? So labia minora gets pigmented and hypertrophied, means the cell size inside the vulva will increase, right? So these were the changes that will take place inside the vulva. Now let's have a look upon vagina. What all changes will take place inside vagina, right? Now the walls of vagina gets edematous. Again edema formation will be there, right? More vascular, right? Due to excessive blood flow, right? Hypertrophied, right? The walls of vagina will show edema formation, more vascularity and hypertrophy, right? Now second thing, Jacquemuir's sign can be observed by 6th week, right? It is the bluish discoloration of the walls due to increased blood supply, right? Jacquemuir's sign means bluish discoloration of the vaginal walls because of increased blood supply, right? This is Jacquemuir's sign. And the length of anterior vaginal wall gets increased, right? The anterior portion of vaginal wall will be increased in length, right? So these were the changes. Now let's have a look upon the vaginal secretions also, right? Now what will happen with secretions? They get copious plus curdy white, right? Copious means in large amount, right? And curdy white, this is because of the exfoliated cells and bacteria. right? Second, pH will turn into acidic, 3.5 to 6, right? And why the pH turns to acidic? Because of the conversion of glycogen into lactic acid due to high levels of estrogen, right? And what will be the benefit of this acidic nature? It will help to prevent the multiplication of pathogenic organisms, right? The acidic nature will help to prevent the multiplication of the pathogenic, means disease causing organisms, right? This was all about vagina. Now we are going to talk about the changes that will take place inside the uterus, right? Now first thing we should keep in mind that the growth of the uterus is not symmetrical one, right? It is asymmetrical, as the fundus of the uterus grow more than the body and another parts, right? So let's have a look. Right? Now uterus is divided into three main parts. This is the body, this is the isthmus, and this is the cervix. Right? We are going to study about changes in all these parts one by one. Right? Now, first talking generally about uterine changes, there is enormous growth of uterus during pregnancy, right? In non-pregnant and as in pregnancy. What all changes will occur? First, let's have a look upon the size. It will measure about 7.5 in a non-pregnant state, right? Whereas at term, it will be near about 35 centimeter, right? And weight, in non-pregnant state, the weight will be about 50 to 60 grams, but at term, the weight will be about 900 to 1000 grams, right? We can study about the uterine changes in three parts, right? Involving three parts of the uterus. First is the body, second is the isthmus, and third one is the cervix, right? Now we are going to study about the changes in these parts one by one. Right? The body part of the uterus shows increased growth and enlargement. Right? So the enlargement part involves further two parts, right? Changes in muscles. Second one is stretching. Right? Now what all changes will occur in muscles? First is hypertrophy will occur, plus hyperplasia will occur. Now what was hypertrophy? increase in size of the cells, right? And hyperplasia means increase in number of the cells, right? Means the muscle fibers will also increase in size as well as number, right? And these changes happen estrogen and progesterone, right? Presence of these hormones or influence of these hormones will lead to hypertrophy and hyperplasia of the muscle fibers inside the body part of the uterus, right? Next is the stretching. Now what happens? Elongation of muscles occurs, right? Means the muscle will stretch and will get elongated maximum after 20 weeks, right? After 20 weeks or 5 months, the uterus will start growing and there will be stretching of the muscles, right? And what happens? This is due to the growing fetus, right? The walls get thinner, right? And at term, it measures about 1.5 centimeter or less. The uterus feels soft and elastic, right? As compared to the firmer feel of non-pregnant uterus, right? Now the uterus will start feeling soft and elastic. Always remember that pregnant uterus is always soft and elastic as compared to a firmer feel of a non-pregnant uterus, right? Study about the arrangement of muscle fibers. Now the muscle fibers are arranged in 3 layers, right? The first one is the outer, second is the intermediate or middle layer, and the last one is inner layer, right? Now we are going to study about the arrangement of muscle fibers within these 3 layers, right? So starting with the very first outer muscle fibers are longitudinal, right? And they form hood like arrangement over the fundus, right? And they are thin. Clear? Let's have a look. Now this is the fundus, right? Now let's see how does the outer longitudinal arrangement of muscle fiber occurs. It forms a hood-like arrangement over the fundus, right? Hood-like arrangement will be there over the fundus, right? Now second, we are going to talk about the intermediate layer, the thickest and the strongest layer arranged in criss-cross, or we can say spiral fashion, right? And through this layer the blood vessels run. Right? When you talk about the middle layer, it will be arranged like this. Right? Now the blood vessels will pass through this layer, right? Through the intermediate layer, right? Next is the inner layer. It is a thin layer, right? Among the outer, intermediate and inner, only the intermediate layer is the thickest and the strongest one, right? Otherwise, these both are thin layers, right? And it has circular or sphincter like arrangement on the orifices or nearby the internal os. Right? Now this layer is arranged in circular or sphincter type arrangement, right? Nearby the orifices. Orifices means openings, right? Of these fallopian tubes, right? This will be arranged in a circular manner over here and nearby the internal os, right? This is the internal os, right? So it will be arranged in a circular manner, right? So this is about the arrangement of muscle fibers, right? Now the vascular system. Now what happens here? In non-pregnant state, the uterus is supplied mainly by uterine as well as ovarian arteries, right? It is supplied by both uterine as well as ovarian arteries, but in pregnancy, ovarian arteries supplies the maximum amount of blood to the uterus, right? At 20th week, the arteries are in a spiral shape, right? Spiraling of arteries is present, right? The arteries will be in a spiral shape, right? But after 20th week, the arteries get straightened. Now, the Doppler velocimetry shows that the diameter of arteries doubles, right? The diameter of arteries get doubled up and the blood flow increases about 8-fold. Means there will be a large supply of the blood through these arteries, right? The veins will get dilated due to vasodilation, right? Numerous lymphatic channels open up, right? Numerous lymphatic channels opens up, and these all changes are mostly pronounced at the placental site, right? Where the implantation has occurred. You can go through my implantation video, right? Next, we are going to talk about the weight, the position, and the shape of uterus, right? Now, as we know that there is increase in weight due to increased growth of uterine muscles, vascular channels, and connective tissues. Right? Due to increased growth of uterine muscles, vascular channels, and connective tissues, the weight of the uterus will increase. Right? Second position, the anteverted position of the uterus is maintained till 8 weeks. Right? Now what happens? Non-pregnant uterus is anteverted, right? And this uterus gets enlarged due to increased weight gain, and at 8 weeks this bulky uterus starts resting upon the bladder. Right? Now this bulky uterus in anteverted position will rest on the bladder, right? The urinary bladder, and it is evident by the frequency of micturition, right? As soon as the bulky uterus rests on the urinary bladder of the pregnant lady, she has an urge to urinate again and again, right? That urge is called frequency of micturition, right? Afterwards, the uterus gets erect, right? After 8 weeks, the uterus from its anteverted position starts getting erected and the pressure on the bladder will be reduced, right? So, this was all about the position. You know that non-pregnant uterus is of pyriform shape, right? And this shape is maintained till early pregnancy, right? Now at 12 weeks, the uterus attains globular shape, right? And at about 28 weeks, it again starts reshaping itself in pyriform shape or ovoid shape, right? And after 36 weeks, it gets spherical in shape, right? We are going to talk about the contractions of uterus, that is named as Braxton and Hicks contractions. Right? Braxton and Hicks were the first to discover the contractions. Now what is contractions? It is the softening and hardening of the uterus. Right? It will feel soft at one moment and harder or firmer at another. Right? This is called contractions. Contractions are present from very early stage. Right? The contractions are present from very early stage of pregnancy, but they are in silent form. Right? The lady is not aware about these contractions, but they are there. It gets worsened at the time of labor. Right? These can be felt at the time of bimanual examination or abdominal examination, or we can say abdominal palpation. Right? These contractions can be felt at the time of bimanual examination as well as abdominal examination or palpation. Right? Now, what are the properties of these contractions at the time of pregnancy? During pregnancy, these are irregular, infrequent, spasmodic, and painless, and these do not have any effect on dilatation of cervix. Right? These contractions during pregnancy are irregular, infrequent, spasmodic, and painless. So they won't lead to dilatation of cervix. Right? There are also changes that are going to take place inside the endometrium, and it will convert the endometrium into decidua. That is being clearly explained in my decidua video. Right? Now we'll study about the second part, that is isthmus. Isthmus during first trimester, or we can say at about 12 weeks, right, gets elongated 3 times of its original length. Right? And gets hypertrophied and becomes softer. Right? Beyond first trimester or after 12 weeks, right, it starts unfolding from above to downwards. Right? This is the isthmus. Right? Now, with the growing cavity of the body, right, as the pregnancy advances, the uterus, the cavity starts growing, and these folds of isthmus starts opening one by one, and completely when it gets unfolded, forms lower uterine segment. Right? It starts unfolding from top to downwards, right? And when it unfolds completely, it forms lower uterine segment. Means until it gets merged with the cavity. So this was all about the isthmus. We are going to talk about the cervix. Right? This is the cervix part. Right? The length of the cervix remains unchanged, but gets bulky. Right? The length of the cervix remains unaffected, unaltered, but it becomes bulky. Now, how it becomes bulky? Let's study. Now, there will be certain changes in stroma of the cervix. What is stroma? It is a sort of supportive tissue or a connective tissue, right? Now, what happens? Hypertrophy and hyperplasia of connective tissues and elastic tissues will occur, right? As well as hypertrophy of glands will also occur, right? And next, fluid accumulation occurs inside and between the muscle fibers, right? Both inside and between, the fluid will be accumulated in the muscle fibers, right? Next, there is increased vascularity, especially beneath the squamous epithelium, right? That leads to bluish discoloration. Due to these all factors, softening of cervix occurs, right? The cervix gets bulky, right, and becomes soft, and this property of softening of cervix is named as Goodell's sign. Right? Goodell's sign is evident at about 6 weeks of pregnancy. Right? Now we are going to talk about the secretions of cervix. Now, the secretions are copious as well as tenacious. This is called leukorrhea. Right? Leukorrheal secretions will be there. What is leukorrhea? It is the white or yellowish, thick, sticky vaginal discharge. Right? And copious means in large amount. This discharge is in large amount as well as sticky. Right? Tenacious means sticky. Right? So leukorrhea, and this leukorrhea here is called the physiological leukorrhea of pregnancy. Right? Now, this is not any disease condition in pregnancy. This is simply a physiological leukorrhea of pregnancy. Now see, what are its benefits? The mucus of these secretions is rich in immunoglobulins and cytokines, right? And this forms a thick plug inside the cervix that is called mucus plug, right? So here a plug of mucus is formed that seals the cervix completely, right? It seals the cervix, right? This is called mucus plug. under the influence of progesterone. Clear? These secretions occurs under the influence of progesterone, right? So this was all about the secretions of cervix. We are going to study about fallopian tubes as well as ovary. Right? Now, what happens in fallopian tubes? Due to pregnancy, the tubes gets congested as the muscles undergo hypertrophy. Right? Due to the hypertrophy property, the tubes gets congested, right? One thing more occurs. There is increase in the total length of the tubes. Right? As the size gets increased, the total length of the tubes also get increased, right? So this was all about the fallopian tubes. Now in ovaries, we have studied about the corpus luteum, right? Corpus luteum secretes the progesterone, that is the main hormone that plays a vital role in the maintenance of pregnancy, right? So this corpus luteum, I have discussed it in my menstrual cycle video, right? Its growth and function reaches maximum by 8th week, right? The growth and function of the corpus luteum gets maximum by 8th week, right? Now what happens? This corpus luteum gets cystic and measures about 2.5 centimeter, right? Its color, firstly, it is bright orange, then later it changes into yellow color, and finally it gets pale, right? And the last thing, the menstrual cycle is suspended throughout the pregnancy, right? So this was all about the fallopian tubes as well as ovary, right? Now we'll study the changes that will take place inside the breasts, right? The size of the breast also changes during pregnancy, that can be clearly observed in primigravida. Primigravida is the lady who is going to become mother for the very first time, right? So let's see the changes. Now talking about the size first. There is increase in the breast size that can be observed during early weeks. Clear? Second, there is hypertrophy and proliferation, right? Due to these properties, hypertrophy and proliferation, the size of the breast increases. So the hypertrophy and proliferation of ducts as well as alveoli occurs. Why do the ducts get hypertrophied or proliferated? Due to the effect of estrogen, and alveoli gets hypertrophied due to the effect of estrogen and progesterone, right? Now the connective tissue stroma also gets hypertrophied, Clear? Now the vascularity is increased inside the breasts and is evident by the bluish discoloration of the veins running under the skin of breasts, right? Or we can say that the veins get dilated and also gets prominent under the skin, right? So this was all about the size. Now we are going to talk about the nipple and areola. Now what happens? The nipples gets erectile, larger and more pigmented, right? And the primary areola also gets deeply pigmented, right? Now what is primary areola? This is the nipple, right? It is surrounded by a pigmented area that is called primary areola, right? Now there is formation of Montgomery's tubercles. Now what are Montgomery's tubercles? These are 5 to 15 sebaceous glands that are inactive at the time of non-pregnant state and gets activated or hypertrophied at the time of pregnancy, right? So what are Montgomery's tubercles? These surround the nipples and are sebaceous glands that are hypertrophied at the time of pregnancy. They are named as Montgomery's tubercles, right? What are the functions of these Montgomery's tubercles? Their secretions keeps the nipple and areola moist and healthy, right? The secretions from Montgomery's tubercles keep the nipples and areola moist and healthy, right? There is one more thing that is named as secondary areola. Now what is secondary areola? It is an irregular outer zone of the primary areola, right? It is faded and not properly pigmented. It is irregularly pigmented area that surrounds the primary areola and it is named as secondary areola, right? And during the advancement of pregnancy, the secondary areola forms, right? And these Montgomery's tubercles also spread towards the secondary areola to keep the nipples and the areola moist, right? These are formed during second trimester, right? Now talking about the secretions of the breast, colostrum is the secretion that is expressed from the breast, right? It can be expressed by 12th week, right? It is very sticky initially, and after 16 weeks it becomes thick and yellowish. Clear? So this was all about the breasts, right? Now we are going to study about cutaneous changes during pregnancy, right? It occurs on face, breasts and abdomen, right? Now we will study the skin changes on these three parts. First is face. Now what happens on face? Plasma gravidarum appears, right? Now what is plasma gravidarum? It is an extreme pigmentation over the cheeks, around about the eyes and on the forehead, right? So it is the mark or pigmentation that occurs due to pregnancy, and it is also called pregnancy mask. Right? Plasma gravidarum is also called pregnancy mask, and it appears over the forehead, cheeks and around eyes. Right? Now, how does it appear? It is either in a patchy pattern, right, or in a diffused pattern, right? It occurs in patchy or diffuse, right? Diffuse means in scattered form, right? And now they disappear after delivery. Right? Now second we are going to talk about the breasts. Now only we have studied that there will be depigmentation of primary areola, right? This is the first skin change. Second, formation of secondary areola in later pregnancy. Right? And third one is striation, that is also called stretch marks. Right? And bluish discoloration can be seen due to dilation of the vein under the skin. Right? Now next is abdomen. Now on abdomen, two types of marks can be seen. First is linea nigra, right? And another one is striae gravidarum. Right? Now talking about linea nigra first, what happens? Right? Now this is xiphisternum. Right? This is the umbilicus. And this is the symphysis pubis. Right? Now what is linea nigra? It is a midline of a brownish black color that extends from xiphisternum up to the symphysis pubis. Right? What is linea nigra? It is a brownish black line that extends from the xiphisternum to symphysis pubis. Right? And this line is due to the melanocyte stimulating hormone that are secreted by anterior lobe of pituitary gland. Right? Pituitary gland secretes melanocyte stimulating hormones. Now next is trigravidarum. Now what is trigravidarum? It is the pinkish depressed linear marks that is formed during pregnancy over the abdomen below the umbilicus. Right? Below the umbilicus, on the thighs as well as on the breasts. Right? Initially they are pink in color, but after delivery they turn into white color, and when they turn into white color they are named as striae albicans. Right? Now why they appear white after delivery like stretch marks? What happens is the scar tissue now gets contracted after delivery and it covers the capillaries, right? So it will start giving a glistening white shade, right? That is called striae albicans. These striae albicans or stretch marks can be prevented during pregnancy by controlling the weight and massaging the abdomen with olive oil, right? And these stretch marks can be seen in obesity or the people with generalized edema, right? So this was all about the cutaneous changes during pregnancy. Now we are going to study about weight gain during pregnancy. Now during pregnancy, we know that females gain weight, and the average weight gain during pregnancy is about 11 kg, right? And this 11 kg is divided into 3 trimesters. First trimester, the lady is supposed to gain weight about 1 kg, and in second trimester 5 kg, and in third trimester also 5 kg. So total of 11 kg is considered to be the average weight gain during pregnancy, right? Now we will discuss about body mass index, right? Whether the lady is overweight or underweight can be calculated by body mass index, and it is measured by weight upon height square. Weight is taken in kgs and height in meters square. If it is between 18.5 to 24.9, it is considered to be ideal, right? And if it is less than 18.5, the lady is considered to be underweight, right? If it is between 25 to 29.9, it is considered to be overweight, right? Means the lady is overweight, right? And if the body mass index is above 30, it is an obese condition or called obesity. Now the ideal weight gain during pregnancy should depend upon these pre-pregnant body mass index, right? We'll see how much weight gain should be suggested to a pregnant lady depending upon this pre-pregnant body mass index. If the lady has an ideal body mass index that is between 18 to 24.9, if she is having ideal body mass index, she should be set to gain total weight about 11 to 16 kg during pregnancy, right? Underweight lady should be allowed to gain weight up to 18 kg, right? And the overweight and obese lady should not gain weight more than 7 kg during whole pregnancy, right? Now what is the importance or significance of checking weight during pregnancy? It rules out the abnormality if there, right? If we observe observe a condition in which there is a rapid falling in weight of the lady, or the weight is stationary, means it is not increasing, right? Then we can consider that it can be case of IUGR, intrauterine growth retardation, means the growth of the baby has stopped, right? Normal growth of baby has stopped. And second, it can be intrauterine death of the baby, right? If we observe that the weight of the pregnant lady is continuously falling or it is not increasing, right, then we can say that these two conditions might be present, right? Next, if the weight of the lady is rapidly increasing, right, means if she is gaining more than 0.5 kg a week or more than 2 kgs a month, right, she can be diagnosed for preeclampsia. Right? If you observe that the weight of the lady is rapidly increasing, more than 0.5 kg a week and more than 2 kg a month, means she can be manifested with preeclampsia in the later pregnancy, means she has a chance to develop preeclampsia. What is preeclampsia? It is a pregnancy induced hypertension, right? Along with two more conditions we'll study when we'll do preeclampsia topic, right? And always remember that the obese lady is always prone to complicated pregnancy, labor and complicated puerperium, that is postnatal period after delivery, right? An obese lady or a rapid weight gain during pregnancy can complicate the pregnancy as well as the labor and puerperium, the postnatal period, right? So this was all about the weight gain. Now next we are going to study about body water metabolism. Now as we know that pregnancy is a state of hypervolemia, right, means fluid overload, right? Second, the water retained at term is about 6.5 liters and the water content of fetus, placenta and amniotic fluid is 3.5 liters, right? Hematological changes. Right? During pregnancy, there is a great change in the hematological values, right? Now let's have a look first on blood volume. Now the blood volume increases during pregnancy due to increased vascularity. Clear? There will be changes in all constituents of blood and the blood volume increases due to increase in vascularity during the pregnancy, right? And it starts increasing by 6th week and reaches up to maximum 40 to 50% at 30 or 34 weeks. Right? The volume starts increasing by 6th week and it is 40 to 50% more than non-pregnant values by the time of 30 or 34 weeks. Right? Now after 30 to 34 weeks, it remains static till delivery. Right? It reaches maximum up to 30 and 34 weeks by 40 to 50% and it remains static till delivery. Right? Next we are going to study about plasma volume. Now what all changes in plasma volume will occur? Now the plasma volume also starts increasing by 6th week and reaches maximum by 50% of the non-pregnant values at 30 weeks. Right? Secondly, the total plasma volume increases up to 1.25 liters. Right? And the plasma volume is high in conditions such as multigravida, multiple pregnancy, and with a large baby. Right? So this was all about plasma volume. Now the red blood cell mass starts increasing by 10th week. Right? It increases up to 20 and 30% maximum. Right? And is about 350 ml. The total volume increased is about 350 ml and it remains static till delivery. Right? Once it has reached up to its maximum limit, it remains static till delivery. Right? Erythropoietin also increases. Right? Erythropoietin helps in the process of erythropoiesis, means formation of red blood cell, and it also increases. Right? Iron supplements are helpful during pregnancy and it increases the red blood cells by 30%. Right? That's why iron supplements are recommended during pregnancy, as they increase the red blood cell volume by 30%. Right? Now talking about HB, the hemoglobin mass is also increased by 18 to 20%. Right? It is 18 to 20% more than non-pregnant values. Right? But the HB concentration falls. Right? Now what is HB? As we know that RBC mass is increasing. Right? These are the RBC cells and they contain hemoglobin within it. What is hemoglobin? It is a protein inside the red blood cells that carries oxygen through the blood to all body parts. Right? So with the increase in RBC mass, the size of HB also increases, means the mass of HB increases, but there is fall in the concentration level of HB. Right? So this is all about red blood cells and hemoglobin. Right? we are going to study about the blood coagulation. What is coagulation? It means clotting, right? As we know that pregnancy is a hypercoagulable state, right? So the clotting rate is very high in pregnancy, right? It is due to increase in fibrinogen levels. Fibrin is a clotting factor and there is increase in the fibrinogen level. In non-pregnant state, it is about 200 to 400 ml, but in pregnancy it is about 300 to 600 ml, right? And due to increase in fibrinogen and globulin levels, erythrocyte sedimentation rate increases largely. So with increase in fibrinogen and globulin levels, the erythrocyte sedimentation rate is also increased, right? Next, platelets show static volume or they might fall slightly by 15%. The clotting time remains unaffected, means it won't be changing during pregnancy, and these all changes occurs to control bleeding after placental separation. Right? These are the changes that occurs in the clotting factors that are beneficial to control the bleeding after placental separation and for hemostasis, right? What happens in the cardiovascular system? The diaphragm is pushed upwards due to the growing uterus, and the heart is also pushed upwards, a bit outwards and slightly towards the left, right? So this was the anatomical change that is going to happen in the cardiovascular system. Now let's see the other changes one by one. Now starting with the cardiac output. What is cardiac output? It is total volume of blood pumped by heart per minute, right? And how it is calculated? Stroke volume into heart rate. Now what is stroke volume? Blood pumped out by each heartbeat, right? This is stroke volume, the amount of blood pumped out by each heartbeat. And what is heart rate? It is the number of beats, right? So the cardiac output is calculated by stroke volume into heart rate, the amount of blood pumped out in each heartbeat and into number of heartbeats, right? As we know that in pregnancy there is a huge demand of blood supply towards the fetus, so the cardiac output will increase, right? And it starts increasing by 5th week and reaches maximum to 40 to 50% of non-pregnant level at 30 to 34 weeks. Clear? and after that it remains static till delivery. Clear? Now the body positioning also has effect on cardiac output. Let's see. Now the cardiac output increases in left or right lateral positions, or in knee chest position, right? And cardiac output decreases in supine position as well as sitting position. That's why the pregnant lady is always advised to avoid lying in supine position and avoid prolonged sitting, right? Because it reduces the cardiac output. Now the cardiac output increases by more than 50% of pre-labor values, right? It will increase more than 50% at the time of labor and will increase more by 70% after delivery and returns back to pre-labor value within 1 hour of delivery and to pre-pregnant values by 4 weeks of period, right? Means by 4 weeks of postnatal period, right? This was all about cardiac output. Now next is blood pressure. In spite of increased cardiac output in pregnancy, the maternal BP is always decreased. So let's study what is the reason behind the decrease in the maternal blood pressure. Now the maternal blood pressure is measured by cardiac output into systemic vascular resistance, right? What is SVR, systemic vascular resistance? It is the resistance in circulatory system to create blood pressure and blood flow, right? Now what happens as vasoconstriction occurs? Vasoconstriction means the blood vessels when get constricted, right? There will be increase in SVR, right? And as vasodilation will occur, there will be decrease in SVR, right? Now in pregnancy we have studied that the veins get dilated, means pregnancy is a state of vasodilation, right? So there will be decrease in SVR, right? So maternal BP is parallel to SVR. If the SVR is increased, the maternal BP will also increase, and if SVR is decreased, the maternal BP will be decreased, right? So pregnancy is a state of vasodilation. The veins get dilated to supply a heavy amount of blood flow, right? So SVR will be reduced. As a result, the maternal BP will also be decreased, right? Next we are going to study about venous pressure. What happens? the antecubital venous pressure remains unchanged. Right? The venous pressure over this area in the front of elbow will remain unchanged, and the femoral venous pressure will be increased. Right? Why the femoral venous pressure will be increased? The gravid uterus or the pregnant uterus exerts pressure over the iliac veins, so the femoral venous pressure will rise. Right? This will be less at the time of resting position, means lying down position, and will be more at the time of standing. Right? This fact explains how the physiological edema of pregnancy subsides just by resting. Right? So this was all about venous pressure. Next is supine hypertension syndrome, also known as postural hypertension. Right? This is a condition in which when the lady lies in a supine position while resting, the gravid uterus or the pregnant uterus exerts pressure on the inferior vena cava. Right? Due to this, there will be fall in the maternal blood pressure. It can be relieved by asking her to take right lateral position or left lateral position. Right? So this was all about supine hypertension. Now we are going to discuss briefly the blood flows. First is uterine blood flow. As we know that it increases due to vasodilation. Right? Vasodilation occurs because of the smooth muscle relaxing effect of estrogen and progesterone. Right? So blood flow increases. Let's check in both states, non-pregnant and at term. Right? Now the blood flow in non-pregnant state was 50 ml per minute. Here it will be 750 ml per minute. Right? Next is renal blood flow. Right? It was 800 ml per minute in non-pregnant state, but in pregnant state it will increase by 400 ml per minute at 16th week and will remain static. Right? In non-pregnant state it was 800 ml per minute, and in term or pregnant state it will be 800 plus 400 or more than 400 ml per minute. Right? It doesn't mean that it is 400 ml per minute. Next is pulmonary blood flow. It was 6000 ml per minute, but now it will be 2500 more ml per minute. Right? Now the blood flow through the skin and mucous membrane by 36th week will be 500 ml per minute, and this is the maximum value. Right? So this was about. Next is metabolic changes. During pregnancy, total metabolism increases to meet the demands of growing fetus and uterus. Right? Now what happens? The basal metabolic rate also increases by 30%, than in non-pregnant state. Right? Now first we'll study about protein metabolism. Right? At term, fetus plus placenta gains 500 grams of protein, right? And maternal gain of protein is also of 500 grams and it is distributed in uterus, breasts and maternal blood. Right? This is the distribution of protein during pregnancy. Next, as we know that proteins break down into amino acids and amino acids further break down into other parts, right? Now let's see breakdown of amino acids to urea is suppressed. Right? Now the suppression of urea will lead to decreased levels of blood urea by 15 to 20%. Right? The breakdown of amino acids into urea is suppressed and it will lead to fall in the levels of blood urea, right, by 15 to 20%. On the other hand, blood uric acid and creatinine levels remains either unchanged or will slightly fall. Right? And the amino acids are transported through placenta to the fetus. Amino acids are now actively transported to the fetus through placenta. Right? So this was all about the protein metabolism. Carbohydrate metabolism. As we know that carbohydrates break down into glucose and there is increased demands of glucose by the growing fetus, right? So what will happen? There will be increased supply of glucose from mother to the fetus, right? Now the supply of glucose is increased. Now what will happen to maintain a balance and prevent mother from getting diabetic? Insulin secretion is also increased. Right? There will be increased insulin secretion. Right? And due to increased insulin secretion, the beta cells of pancreas will show hypertrophy and hyperplasia. Right? There will be increase in the size and amount of beta cells in order to secrete the insulin. Right? Now this mechanisms ensure a safe supply of glucose to the fetus. Right? So this was all about carbohydrates. Now next is fat metabolism. Right, now what happens? Average of 3 to 4 kg of fat is stored inside the maternal body during pregnancy, and it is stored in abdominal walls, breasts, hips and thighs. Right? And second thing, plasma, lipids and lipoproteins are also increased during second half of the pregnancy. Right? It was all about fat metabolism. Now we are going to study about iron metabolism. Iron is absorbed in ferrous form, right, from duodenum and jejunum. Right, this is the first part of small intestine, this is the second part of small intestine, and this is the most commonly asked question in Viva, and it is released in circulation as transferrin. Right? It is transferred or released in circulation as transferrin and absorbed as ferrous form. The total iron requirement during pregnancy is approximately about 1000 mg, right? And the distribution of iron is done as 300 mg is distributed to fetus plus placenta, right? 400 mg is consumed by expanded red blood cell mass, right? We have studied in hematological changes that total increase in red cell volume is about 350 ml, right? We have studied. Now in this 350 ml, 1 ml is equal to 1.1 gram of iron, right? And 300 mg of iron is conserved due to amenorrhea, right? Amenorrhea means absence of menstruation, right? During pregnancy, the menstrual cycle is suspended, so amenorrhea will be there, and iron loss in per menstrual bleeding is about 30 mg, right? So this was the total distribution of 1000 mg, and during lactation iron requirement is about 1 mg per day, and in later months iron requirement is increased by 6 to 7 mg. There is active transportation of iron through placenta to fetus. Right? This was all about iron metabolism, and last one is the lipid metabolism. Now there are two types of cholesterols, that is high density lipoproteins. Another one is low density lipoproteins. Right, this is known as LDL and this is known as HDL. Now what is lipoprotein? It is the cholesterol that travels on the protein into the blood flow, right? Now what is high density lipoprotein? It is known as good cholesterol. Why it is called good cholesterol? Because it absorbs or removes the other forms of cholesterol that lead to cardiac diseases. Right? It is called good cholesterol because it removes other forms of cholesterol and send back to the liver that can lead to cardiac diseases. Right? It is called bad cholesterol because it starts building up inside the arteries that can cause cardiac disease. Right? So, in pregnancy, the high density lipoprotein increases by 15%. Right? And LDL, low density lipoprotein, is utilized by placenta for steroid synthesis. Right? So this was all about lipid metabolism. Now the last part is systemic changes. Right? And first we'll study about respiratory changes. Right? Changes in respiratory system. Now as we know that during pregnancy the diaphragm is pushed upwards due to growing uterus, right? And it is pushed upwards about 4 centimeters, right? The diaphragm is pushed upwards 4 centimeters, right? Now what happens? Due to this, the total lung capacity is reduced by 5%, right? Due to this elevation of diaphragm, the total lung capacity is reduced by 5%, right? I'll mention due to elevation of diaphragm, right? Now the breathing becomes diaphragmatic. Right? Next, total chest circumference increases by 5 to 7 centimeter. Mucosa of nasopharynx becomes hyperemic and edematous. Right? Next, a state of hyperventilation occurs, right? And it increases the tidal volume. Right? Hyperventilation occurs, that raises the tidal volume, and this is due to progesterone effect, right, acting on the respiratory center, and that's why the woman complains or feels shortness of breath. Clear? And the hyperventilation causes changes in acid base balance, right? And due to this change in acid base balance, the carbon dioxide from fetus is transferred to mother, right? And oxygen from mother is transferred to fetus, right? And due to this, the maternal oxygen consumption is increased by 20 to 40%, right, to meet the increasing demands of fetus, placenta and maternal tissues. Right? This is all about respiratory changes. Next we are going to talk about urinary system, and in this first we'll study about changes in kidneys. Right? Now there is dilatation of ureters and renal pelvis. Right? This is kidney. These are the ureters. Here is the urinary bladder, right? And these are the renal pelvis, right? Dilatation or dilation of ureters and renal pelvis will occur, and it will lead to increase in size of kidney by 1 centimeter, right? Now there is also increase in renal plasma flow by 50 to 70%, right? Maximum at 16 weeks and remains up to 34 weeks, right? And after 34 weeks, it falls by 25%. Glomerular filtration rate is increased by 50% and it remains throughout the pregnancy, right? It remains increased throughout the pregnancy, and due to this increased glomerular filtration rate, it is also called GFR, right? Due to increase in GFR, the maternal plasma levels of creatinine, blood urea nitrogen, that is also called BUN, and uric acid, these three levels due to increase in GFR will fall, right? There will be reduction in these three levels, right? Renal tubules fails to reabsorb water soluble vitamins, amino acids, glucose and uric acid, right? This was all about kidneys. Now next is ureters. Dilatation of ureters occur. There is marked hypertrophy of muscle sheath of ureter. They become atonic due to high progesterone levels. There is kinking, enlargement and outer displacement of ureters, right? So this was all about ureters. Next we are going to study about bladder. There will be hypertrophy of muscles and elastic tissue of urinary bladder, and this hypertrophy leads to congestion. In late pregnancy, the mucosa gets edematous mucosa of the bladder forms edema, and this is due to lymphatic and venous obstruction. Right? In late pregnancy, the bladder mucosa gets edematous, and this is due to the lymphatic and venous obstruction. Right? We have studied about frequency of micturition. Right? What is frequency of micturition? It is an urge to urinate again and again. As we have studied earlier, that in first trimester, the frequency of micturition is increased. Why? Because the gravid uterus is exerting pressure on this urinary bladder, and urinary bladder is already undergoing these many changes, right? So frequency of micturition is increased, but in second trimester it subsides. Why? Because in second trimester the uterus starts growing upwards and the pressure from the bladder is relieved, right? And in third trimester, again due to lightening, I'll explain you in labor part, right? Again the pressure of the uterus is occurring on this urinary bladder. It will be increased again in third trimester. Right? Now in last trimester, one more condition will arise, that is called stress incontinence. In this, the lady is incapable to withhold the urine, and it is because of weakness of urethral sphincter. Right? So this is stress incontinence. Whenever the lady feels to urinate, she cannot control it, right? Because of the weak urethral sphincter, right? Next we are going to study about alimentary system. Right? Now what happens? Starting from mouth, gums becomes congested, spongy, and may bleed to touch, and this is all due to the effect of progesterone. Right? So gums will get congested, spongy, and may bleed to touch because of the effect of progesterone. Now the muscle tone and motility. Motility means movement of entire gastrointestinal tract will be diminished due to the effect of progesterone, right? The muscle tone will be diminished, and the motility means movement of entire GI tract, gastrointestinal tract will be diminished, and this is due to the effect of progesterone. Now this atonicity means lack in tone and movement will lead to constipation, right? And a mother or a pregnant lady is at higher risk of developing hemorrhoids, right, due to constipation, right? Because the muscle tone and motility of entire GI tract is diminished, the atonicity will lead to constipation, right? Now the cardiac sphincter is relaxed, and due to this there is regurgitation of the gastric contents into esophagus. Now the gastric contents will be regurgitated, right, inside the esophagus, and it will lead to heart burn, right? And this also leads to dyspepsia, means indigestion. Clear? Now, risk of gastric ulcers is reduced during pregnancy. Why? Because gastric secretions are diminished and delayed emptying of stomach occurs. Right? And this delayed emptying of stomach also leads to constipation. Right? So this was all about changes in alimentary system during pregnancy. Now next we are going to talk about liver and gallbladder. Now what all happens in liver? There are no histological changes in liver cells, but functions get altered. Right? There are no changes in the cells, but only in the functions of the liver. The alkaline phosphatase level are increased and no changes in other liver function tests, that is LFT, occurs. Only the alkaline phosphatase levels are increased and there is no change in other liver function tests, right? Now there will be mild cholestasis and this will be due to estrogen effect. Now what is cholestasis? It is the condition in which the secretion from bile gets slowed down or stops, right? So mild cholestasis can be seen and marked atonicity of gallbladder can be seen, and this is due to progesterone effect. Right? Now these two conditions, right, with high blood cholesterol level can lead to the formation, or there is a risk of gallstone formation. Right? These two conditions, cholestasis and atonicity of gallbladder, along with high blood cholesterol level, right, these can increase the chances of cholelithiasis, that is gallstone formation in pregnancy, right? Now next we'll talk about nervous system. Right? In nervous system, temperamental changes can be observed. Right? What are temperamental changes? We can say mood changes can be there, right? Nausea, vomiting, mental irritability, and sleep disorders, and these can be due to some psychological background. carpal tunnel syndrome may occur at the later pregnancy. Now, what is carpal tunnel syndrome? It appears in later months of pregnancy, and it is the numbness and tingling sensation of arms and hands. Right? So this was all about nervous system. Now last is the calcium metabolism and skeletal system. In pregnancy, there is increased demand of calcium by the growing fetus, and it is about 28 grams, and 80% of this is required during last trimester for fetal bone mineralization. Right? Total 28 grams of calcium is required, out of which 80% of this calcium is required at last trimester for fetal bone mineralization. Right? Daily calcium requirement in pregnancy and lactation is about approximately 1 to 1.5 grams, right? It is an average requirement of daily calcium, right? The calcitonin levels are increased by 20%, and these calcitonin levels prevents osteoporosis. Right? Maternal serum phosphatase levels remain unchanged, and at last the calcium absorption from kidneys and intestines is increased. Right? The calcium absorption from kidneys and intestines is increased. This is due to increase in 1,25 dihydroxy vitamin D3. Right? It is stimulated by parathyroid hormone inside the kidney, and it is also known as calcitriol. Right? Calcitriol is very important for healthy bone formation. With this, we have completed our physiological changes.